Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, pump up your inspiration, and meet the people that make change happen. I'm the host of the show, Reese Arlen, along with my co-host, Christian Webb. Say hello. Say what's up.
Hello.
And
we have
today,
a special announcement today.
Well, let's introduce and then we'll do the special announcement. So we are joined by Mr. Dale Gillmore with Make an Impact Foundation. But before we start the show, we have a very special announcement. Dale, why don't you go ahead?
So I have to just quickly say it's my mother's birthday today, so I want to say happy birthday to my mother, Shelly.
Happy birthday.
She's back in Flint, Michigan,
Yeah.
where I grew up, and I just want to wish her the biggest and best happy birthday that I could ever give from afar here in North Carolina. So thanks for letting me say that.
Yeah, most definitely.
David, you need to put like a beautiful heart appearing on the video here in this like little 4 seconds.
David. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he'll get it done. He'll get
right.
something. He'll get like a little I don't know. We'll figure it out.
David, don't exchange any like personal information with her because she might wear you out.
Uh-oh. That is. I mean, maybe we'll have David do it anyways. But anyways, that is our very first birthday wish on Business Legends in 67 episodes. So I'm pretty excited about
3
that.
years and counting.
3 years and counting.
First happy birthday.
Yep, first happy birthday. So Dale, tell our listeners a little bit about Make an Impact and how you came to be.
Yeah, so I like to make things easy. So if you say, hey, what is the Make an Impact Foundation? What is it? Bank accounts for kids and families.
Okay.
That's really what it is. Like in the very uninspirational thing for a second, it's bank accounts for kids and families. Mm-hmm. What Make an Impact is, though, is really a platform which allows creativity for those that don't want to go create their own foundation and don't want to deal with the red tape and really just want to serve and do good things for kids and families. And so Make an Impact Foundation is really led by two people, Allie and Deborah, who are both fantastic humans and individuals. Our customers, I'll call them, which are our donors, mm-hmm. are, really, really up to a lot of things. Like any good entrepreneurs like you guys, they're up to a lot of things. And they really want to do the next great thing, and a lot of people want to give back. And sometimes giving back is hard to figure out how you want to do it. And, as a business owner that's sort of been there and done that, which is kind of how the foundation started, we would write checks to things, but then we didn't volunteer for them and we didn't experience them. Even prior to my business days, when my boss would leave us a firm-wide voicemail to say, you are such and such level at the firm and you should really be considering giving to the, I'll just say a large group that we all know and love and we work with at our charity, but just giving to give and not really understanding how it's going to be used or dealt with, and is 90% going to the cause or not, and all of the things that you go through people's minds that sort of want to get the bang for their buck versus just follow the heart and the care. And so we struggle with that as a business, and our whole, we put our budget together every year, kind of look at what we did last year and realize that, man, we gave a lot to charity, but we didn't do anything. I didn't build a house for kids. I mean, like, we didn't do anything, right? So, so the charity evolved from that to sort of be able to create space to do more with our money. And so now, and I used to own a CPA firm, and we kind of built it then, but so it evolved from there to then becoming really more of a grant program. What are good things to do, and can we get involved and write a grant for it, and employees involved, which was the genesis of sort of as it's evolved. And then from there, I sold out of my CPA practice in 2014. And from there, it's continued to evolve to say, well, why wouldn't I take this and give it to other companies to do the same thing, right? And so we flipped the model around. Instead of being captive to just our company and something we did for our clients and employees, it became more like, no, this is really, I'm glad we did it. And because, we didn't know what we were doing, because we couldn't get clear on what we were all passionate about, the broad mission of kids and families and projects. is super broad.
That's the part that got us really excited, honestly, because we're partnering with Eric, one of our good friends and our business partners.
I feel like we mention him every podcast, by the way.
Really do.
It just works out that way.
Plug.
But
yeah. And just for sake of saying, Artisan Signs and Graphics does all of our signs for our charity. So thanks to Eric also.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't meant to, impromptu plug again.
Well,
I didn't know that.
And funny enough, I'll actually see Eric tonight. We have an event. I'll make sure to tell him that we have that we gave him a little plug again today.
Yeah.
But
that's the part I like, though, is that we're able to create a charity together and then use our own teams to volunteer inside of it and our own funds to actually grow a charity that we made or support another. But it's there. I thought that was so cool.
Well, and that's it. I mean, there's no, the vision of Make an Impact Foundation is just to provide conduits to make serving really good projects for the kids that really need it, but also make it easy for people to do it, not hard. Try to eliminate red tape, and if somebody starts something with us and it's like, man, it really takes off, and it needs to be its own 501c3, awesome.
Yeah,
we're totally good with that.
Yeah,
like
you'll help them.
We'll help them, and we have, and we've birthed several in the area over the years, and it's really cool to see that they're now operating and doing things, and it came out of our, our house, so to speak. So, we have community kind of projects that are maybe more one-time-ish stuff, and then we have what we call My Corporate Impact, which is the companies using our platform to do good things for kids and families, and also engage their employees. And if their employees are going to payroll contribute, they know where their money's going because it's a bank account for kids that everybody has transparency to see, we're built kind of like a general contract for the business world. We're built kind of like a general contractor. 90% goes to the stuff that it's supposed to. 10% goes to the house to serve, websites and people and whatever. Like not super efficient, super lean, and it's a blessing to just be a part of, and the things that Allie and Deborah do every day are pretty amazing to me. And just shout out to them for being great at what they do. Deborah is once she knows the green lit is on a project, she is like
on it,
get it done.
Yeah,
right. And that's the other beauty of the charity. If an outside organization wants to do more and wants to engage their employees, but they don't want their employees working charity 3 days a week because they need to be productive, like serving the business, well, that's what Allie and Deborah are for, right? To drive that initiative back through the organization and take the heavy lifting sort of off the company, where maybe there's a little committee at the company or that's involved that really, really cares about whatever it is that they're up to. And anyway, but that allows the employee engagement to be there, and there's millions of stats. I think Allie and Deborah probably have them somewhere that would say employee engagement with charitable options is a big deal, especially today more than ever.
Sure.
I was just
especially
about to say that.
Today more than ever.
Culture and lifestyle leaning business positions and very important stuff. So you're a man of many talents. Let's back it up just a little bit. When did your entrepreneurial journey start?
I'll call it slave labor. When I was younger, I was always looking for a job and trying to figure out a way to make some money because we didn't have any money, and I didn't realize we didn't have any money, by the way, until I got older and got perspective. But when I was younger, I'm like, man, I don't know how to pay for anything, right? And so, I started doing little things, and I discovered that getting a newspaper out, which doesn't really exist today anymore. I mean, I guess somebody's delivering occasional papers here or there, but back in the day, those newspapers relied on young slave labor, child labor
on a bicycle
to go. Yep. And I had to go door to door and collect my money. And if I wanted to short my newspaper run by a paper or two, I got pushback from the newspaper.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
The newspaper would be like, "What do you mean you're going to short your run?" And I'm like, "Such and such is not paying me, so I've got to short my run." Right? I got taught business by the Flint Journal.
Wow.
So thank you, Flint Journal. And I scraped my pennies together, and I'd buy my my Slurpees and my hot dogs from 7-Eleven or whatever I did with my money. But
that's what I still do with my money, by the way.
But I always knew, like, I don't know why I thought this way, but there was always this thought, like, man, I'm an accountant in my core of my day job today, but like somewhere in there, the accountant tendencies happened because I may not have gotten the super Slurpee. I might got the smaller one or whatever. And then I always get like, why? I'd always connect the dots. So like, why am I, such and such didn't pay me, and it wasn't, by like $2 a week or something. And
right.
And here I'm a kid like hustling to get my $2 a week, not really with no perspective at the time, right? Like, man, if I hustled this hard for like $30 a week, how much more money could I make in a different profession or something, right?
Right.
So anyway, so I would say the Flint Journal kind of got me started without knowing that they got me started.
That's amazing.
And that created the principles of things, But I also
let me pause you there real fast. Do you guys think that there are opportunities like that still for children? Like, I mean, I think you have to be 14 to legally work or something like that now. But like, do you think that there are opportunities for outside of a lemonade stand? Like, I can't think of anything that a 10-year-old person can do to kind of learn business like that anymore.
Well, I think the problem is it's actually too readily available. Like you have because he did the Flint Journal. Like
right.
I can pull up my phone right now and have 60 audibles that teach me all the Flint Journal. Taught him in years, probably in 2 days.
Sure.
Yeah.
But because it's so readily available, I don't think kids even touch it.
Yeah, I think they're busy playing Fortnite and stuff. I mean, really though,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's tangible with their hands, and e-commerce and whatever makes things so like. I mean, anybody could start an e-commerce business tomorrow and fail.
Right.
And that's the key to entrepreneurship is failure, right?
We call it learning.
Yeah, you got to fail to learn.
Right.
Right. You got to fail to learn. And failure only happens when you quit.
Yeah.
It's true. So true.
Failure only happens when you quit. So, I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted with that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, even with my own kids, I'm like, geez, here are some ideas or whatever, but it's got to be innate in the person too. I mean, the nature versus nurture stuff. Like, there's some nature going on in the world too. It's not just nurture.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, what was your first business?
First business. Good question. I've always vicariously lived through other people's businesses, right? Because that was sort of the trained accountant in me.
That's a great transition into make an impact too, because like you're vicariously living through their charitable constructs and stuff. That's amazing that the connection happened that way.
Yeah, and I think the spirit of me, right? It's not entrepreneur. Like I always sort of say, just business kind of taught me this, right? So business and entrepreneurship kind of fight in my head like every day. So the business person would say, do the things focus on the core, and stay away from like the shiny nickels or whatever, right? And so the trained accountant grew up that way, and I would always focus on, well, what's the core of their business? How are they making money? Are they as efficient as they possibly can? So the trained accountant did all that. All the way back to my first business was when I came to Charlotte. I worked for the big accounting firms in Michigan, and then came to Charlotte and lived everywhere but Charlotte, worked at Ernst & Young. And I finally just said, well, if I'm ever going to start my own business, there's always this idea of, we always have the kitchen ideas of, the flying car is the latest one, right? Like I need a flying car.
Yeah.
We always have those ideas. But in the end, I just needed to get started with what I knew.
Yeah.
And so, maybe too conservative because I'm an accountant in my heart, but aggressive in that, of course, we need to make this better than we found it, right? And so started an accounting firm from scratch.
Wow.
With no customers, no anybody, no anything. And, we leased a space and, had a couple phones and maybe a couple chairs at best, some slapped together desks. And, we went for it. And we were, that was the first real outside of maybe a little real estate project here or there that was, venture-ish. That was the first real venture. So it wasn't like I did something shiny and exciting, but what I did was, what am I really good at? Let me just go do that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like bosses. Like, you realize.
I can relate.
My customer gets to be my boss, and I'm good with that because it sets the direction.
Right.
But they don't have to tell me how I'm going to do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to have the result of what I do.
Yep.
Right. And so where I always struggled was I always thought I could do it better than my boss, like my whole life. Even when I made.
Who does he sound like right now?
You.
My whole life. And I'm not even saying that it's true. Like, I just know that it felt right for me.
Yeah.
And, life's about perspective and feeling good and learning from your mistakes, right? And so, anyway, so I don't know that I'm employable. But anyway, I started the CPA firm. We grew it to nearly 60 people or whatever, and I sold out of the practice in 2014. Mm-hmm. And that was the first kind of stab at it.
Mm-hmm.
First stab, 60 people.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, except for the Flint Journal, like wearing me out and me throwing people's, papers in the mud puddle or whatever if they didn't pay their bill.
Yeah.
Because Flint Journal made me buy it. Didn't mean that they could read it if they didn't pay it. Right. Like, so, yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, that was a poor character trait back then, and I'm better now.
Yeah,
I had worse character traits at that age.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I think that you learn through things like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very natural for a lot of people to look back on, particularly the mistakes they've made or the quote unquote failures, but to reiterate what you just said, you only fail when you quit. And the other thing is, like, I know I've made a ton of mistakes in my life, for instance, and I know that I never have malicious intent, and I know that I still make mistakes or whatever, but that's the piece that always like gives me an ability to forgive myself and move on, is that I know that in my heart I wasn't being malicious about that, even no matter how bad the mistake was. So 2014, you sell out of your CPA firm, and then where does Make an Impact come in? Is that 15 or into 14? Or?
So Make an Impact was started in 2010.
Oh, okay.
And was captive to our firm up until that point.
Gotcha. Okay.
And at that point, that's when we flipped the model.
Gotcha.
And we started serving. We kind of three lanes. One is community projects. So we built a lot of playgrounds. We've built 22.
Oh wow.
or so. Now, or 23, I don't know what number we're on. I'll have to ask Allie.
Yeah.
She's leading all of that effort today. But community projects aren't just playgrounds. It just happens to be the niche of the playground, right?
Sure.
I don't like to get pushed in the corner and do only one thing because that would be boring.
Yeah, sure.
So as any style that I've always grasped to is I want to keep the lane wide and I want to do impactful things, right?
Yeah.
And so playgrounds, we've developed a niche there. And that's the community side. My corporate impact side, that's the, I think I'll say it on air. I don't think they'll care. In fact, we should be promoting them for the greatness of them. Clean Juice is a client of my corporate. They're a my corporate impact customer. Mm-hmm. And like every good business, there's a different business model. If I have another client that's an engineer, and the engineers are paid really well, so therefore they do more payroll deductions, and right.
Yeah.
With Clean Juice, the baristas are, they're baristas. They're not gonna make, $75 an hour at that job.
Right.
Right. And therefore, they might not be able to afford to drive a payroll deduction. Mm-hmm. So the key is the folks like you and me that are buying the smoothies. And so they have created a concept called Quarters for Kids with our help. And so Quarters for Kids, if you go to Clean Juice, you buy a smoothie. Typically on the POS system, you can put how many quarters you want to add to the order, and away you go. And then that money is compiled in bank accounts for kids, right? To serve projects in the communities of the franchise owners. Mm-hmm. And as an example, so my corporate impact is those kinds of things. And it's different for every company. Mm-hmm. Employee engagement's different for every company. And you got to figure out, well, what's the model work for that company? So that's the my corporate impact. But we're and then there's the individual one-time donors or somebody that doesn't know what they want to do yet, but they know they want to serve kids, and maybe the appeal is I need to get a charitable deduction before December 31st. but my heart's in serving kids, and I just haven't figured out exactly what I want to do yet.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we could be a home for that.
Yeah.
And so we're $1 million or so of projects a year. We should be doing $2 million of projects a year. It isn't a huge number, but since 2010, we've done like $7 million of stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
$6-7 million of stuff, and it's really fun, and it's all pure charity, which is what's even more cool about it.
So you exited in 2014, right? 60 employees. Mm-hmm. How was that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of what I do for a living today for other companies, right? Mm-hmm. That process was hard.
Learned a lot.
You learn a lot, but I also would say, it gave perspective. Everything gives perspective if you own it and live it and breathe it. Mm-hmm. So the perspective of that was what I learned about myself is I'm an entrepreneur trapped in a CPA's body, right? I did probably learn that about myself through that journey. But I also, learned that I don't like to focus on winning one good thing. I like to pay attention to all the opportunities and provide support. Mm-hmm. Like that's just who I am. I'm a servant I'm a servant by nature. So not giving up on the servant heart, but using the structure of accounting or whatever to support business owners is what we do today. But that process was tough. We built our firm through the Great Recession. And we grew through the Great Recession. Every other firm in Charlotte was on hiring freezes. Mm-hmm. Magically, our firm popped then because all of a sudden the kids that couldn't get jobs from the prestigious schools, while we were the only ones really hiring. So, we grew quickly in that period of time. So I would tell you, if bring on a recession, bring COVID or all these experiences that are sort of easily crutches for the world to sort of dictate what you're up to. Mm-hmm. Don't let the commonality of things impact what you're up to. Would be a quick thing to say. But we grew through that.
That is a great expression, by the way. I just want to commend you for that. Like that's an incredible thing to say.
Oh, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever remember what I said. So,
don't let the commonality of things dictate what your direction is going to be. That's a very powerful and impactful thing,
Yeah, I need to write that down.
Yeah. Well, we'll have it on record, so you got it.
But I guess so. The journey through owning and running a CPA firm is so many different things. But we quickly grew early by just running hard and basically telling people that we are going to be a profit center to you, not a cost to you. Which is I say that today. Yeah. Like anybody that wants to hire me, please don't hire me and think that you're going to pay me. Mm-hmm. Of course I want to be paid, but we're going to be a profit center to you. Otherwise, we shouldn't take the engagement, right? So we had that same principle at our CPA firm, and that grew us fast. The first recession actually grew us faster because we were like focusing on people's budgets and layoffs, and we had a lot of architects as clients who got hit the hardest in the first recession, architects and contractors.
Yeah.
Probably 30% of our business.
Wow.
And so we were focused on layoffs and, things to make their businesses better. And you're like, wait a second, don't they file tax returns? Yes.
Yeah, they have to.
Yes, they do. But that was part of it. That wasn't what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right? So
do you think that your perspective on that, so you said something else powerful that I want to commend you for. Whenever the thing that I think of when I think of like my accountant, I get along with our accountants very well, for obvious reasons. His wife, by the way. But whenever I think about accounting in general, I think about like a necessary expense, almost to the point of saying like a necessary evil. Mm-hmm. But what you said is that your perspective is that you wanted to be a profit center for people, like you wanted to assist them with whatever came their way, whether it was payroll or tax returns or anything like that.
Layoffs, mergers.
Yeah. The goods and the bads, right?
For sure. Is there anything that you think particularly, whether it was cultural or mental, emotional, or whatever, is there anything that you attribute to your growth during that particular period of time?
I think just resilience is a really important word for people. That's why I say, maybe quitting is the ultimate failure, and sometimes that might be the necessary thing to do, right? But I would say that resilience piece, I never quit in me. I kind of grew up, in a tough environment. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, surrounded by, drug addicts, alcoholics, and, generally kind of a bad environment. Mm-hmm. But when you're a kid, and I played a lot of sports, so super competitive, and, until the whistle blew or the last pitch was thrown or the last out was made, and whatever sport I was playing, we were going. We were trying to win. We're trying to, whatever. And I think through life, that can be bad too. I mean, you can over-compete for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. The win-loss and mentality doesn't lift all boats.
Right.
Right. So I would say that sometimes, when we walked into situations with clients today, and even then, it was like, how are we going to care for them? And oh, by the way, I still have employees that I have to pay, and how are they going to pay me? Mm-hmm. Right. And so, but the lift all boats is, it's got to be a profit center to you, but I expect to be paid because my people need to eat and they've got families to take care of too.
Yeah.
Right. And so that, in hindsight, when I look back at, the growth of our firm, and that firm still exists today. BGW, Adam Boatsman runs it. He's doing a great job, and I'm proud of him for the sake of saying that. But, but that was our goal. We were kind of, if we take care of our clients, and we either put more money in their pockets or their companies survive this, they will be there to pay our fees.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. That was the mentality at the time. It wasn't like, well, they need more help, right? It was not they need less help.
Right.
Or they can't afford to pay us, so therefore we shouldn't help. Mm-hmm. It was never the mentality. Still isn't today. Now, you still have to be smart in what are the guardrails, and, if in a troubled situation, I typically say, I'm getting paid when you're paying payroll. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If I'm coming in to help this ship get steered, I'm getting paid when you pay payroll, because right. that's the deal.
Right.
And it may not be
in this.
Yeah. It may not be as, maybe I'm willing to do a little short-term discount and there'll be a back-end piece, but I'm getting paid when we pay payroll because, we have
You're doing the work.
We're doing the work. We got to help you.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with that, right? Like,
sure.
You can't just be so selfless that you throw yourself on a sword and are a martyr for the situation.
So you sold in 2014, then you went to Tahiti, and then came back. When did your next business open?
Yeah, so I immediately started financial consulting business, which is kind of what Quest has evolved to now. And at the time, I was starting to do some M&A stuff. And, I started working with a local business brokerage firm as a partner with them in the intent to build their consulting practice. But what I quickly realized, what I always knew as a CPA is sometimes our clients weren't pulling us in soon enough to be able to really do the big ROI stuff. Yeah. Sometimes it was that you told us at the last second, and I could have saved you freaking $2 million if you called me 6 months ago.
Right.
Right. Like 10 million in some. I mean, I'm not really not exaggerating with that statement. And that used to make me. It made me crazy in our CPA days.
Yeah.
Well, when I started doing financial consulting, I'm a little bit more plugged into what's going on with everything in the real time, and what's your 3-year plan, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year, what's your forever plan. And that helped me kind of bridge that core issue from my prior life. But the other part is the M&A side. What I learned about the M&A side was those guys are really just trying to get deals closed, which that's how they feed their family, so I'm not being critical. Mm-hmm. But there was all this stuff that happens in between. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This isn't a light switch that I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to sell my company tomorrow. If you run your business like a light switch, you'll never get the full value out of it, and you're leaving tons of money on the table.
Sure.
If you run your business like I'm going to build a grandioso plan and know that I'm going to fail, and I know that it may not exactly end up like the plan, the picture I paint, but I'm going to engage on what's the opportunity and keep my eyes open to what those options are. And if you don't have those eyes or that perspective, you have to rely on professionals in the right place that help you with that perspective. So for me, the issue on the other side was almost the other extreme with I sold my business today. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm still the CPA that says, wait a second, we could have worked on some EBITDA improving opportunities. Why didn't you do your family planning? I mean, what are you going to do on Monday after you sell this thing? You have no idea. Like all these other life planning things and estate tax savings or income tax savings, but more value increasing things to the business, that stuff wasn't getting done for me well enough, because I was like, man, I would have done 15 more things. And it's not always the broker's fault, right? I'm not blaming the broker. It's typically the owner of the company sort of tired, or like they sell it for the wrong reasons at the wrong times. Right. I've been running this, and I'll call it a 7-year itch. Everybody has one. So does your wife too, by the way. So you need to make sure you love her and take care of that and figure out what that means. Or at home. But like everybody has one. The business owner has one in their business. The business has been around for 50 years. The owner has done probably 75 roles in that business from year to year. Right? 75 roles. And if he didn't find 75 roles, what did he do? He got tired and sold it. Right? The successful business that lasted this really long time, that owner did a million different things in that business. And was able to kind of reinvent himself inside. The ones that sell it for the wrong reasons, they're selling it because they're too tired or whatever. That whole working on the business thing, that is a thing that's in all of these other podcasts that you guys are on your podcast now. That's real, but it's so real that the owner doesn't always understand what that really means. And so to me, our job is really to support the working on the business, taking all the things that are decreasing value away. We talked about Flint, Michigan this morning. Well, the biggest issue with Flint, Michigan was General Motors took 150,000 jobs and moved them from Flint overnight in 1986 or whatever the year was. 1980, I can't remember what year it was. Flint, the problem for Flint was, diversification. They had one major employer in Flint, Michigan.
General Motors.
And boom, then overnight. So think about that in the business perspective. If you got one major client that's paying you bills, is that really a business? If you have one major
scary business.
So the diversification thing is real, right? So you take your perspectives and say, all right, well, I'm not saying to get rid of that customer that's like making the hay. I'm not saying that. But create more products and services, maybe be more enterprise or entrepreneurial inside your company to say, what are some things we're doing for this big company that I could segment out and do for smaller companies or whatever. But that working on your business piece to make it more valuable is the real work. And then, certainly pre-planning on estate and income taxes, which all my accountants and CPA firms in the world would say, nod in their heads, I hope. That stuff all happens. If you try to do that in the middle of a sales process, your broker's going to say, no, you ain't doing that.
Right. Because they want to make the deal. Right.
The good news about our firm is if we have to do that in the middle of our sales process, we're doing it. In fact, it's like we make people do it. You don't hire us if you don't want to do that.
If you don't plan ahead.
Like if you don't want to do that, then please hire a broker. Don't hire us, because we're gonna try to squeeze a couple more pennies out of the lemon. Right? Or whatever.
I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised brokers don't do it on a regular basis. It's a percentage of a larger bill.
It's perspective. They know how to sell a business. They rely on CPAs and attorneys and accountants to do all this other stuff that I'm talking about. Right? And they're good CPAs and attorneys and accountants, but the core issue is the ego of our business owner who won't listen to us. Sometimes you need 3 people saying the same thing, so the owner says, okay, got it. I heard you. Now I know I need to do something about that. And that's just the influence that you have in the relationship with your customer. And we want relationships with our customers, or we really don't want to do that. That's the other thing, is I couldn't stand the transactional element of just straight M&A. I missed my relationship with my clients as on the CPA firm. And so what Quest is today is, we have 4 buckets of service. Explore, which is meet them where they're at, figure out everything that's family, estate, income tax, valuation increasing, we have a little, all of it. Figure out where you're at. Are you a growing company? Then you fit in our grow bucket. And you're not, we got time before you're going to sell something. You're in our grow bucket. Are you ready to exit? You're in our change bucket, but our change bucket is everything. It's not just sell your business. It's like transition to your son or daughter, transition or partially sell, or look, if the management team is so strong, why don't I look at a management buyout? Or even better, if it makes sense, this doesn't make sense for every single one, but it comes up every discussion, is the ESOP. Does the ESOP work for my company?
And for our
none
listeners,
of that.
Can you explain that ESOP? What that
Employee stock ownership plan.
Right.
It's really basically a trust that all the employees own the shares of the company. And but that could be a good solution, but it doesn't fit everyone.
Right.
It doesn't fit. There's a lot of governance issues around that, and if you, it doesn't fit everybody. But that stuff, the brokers don't do any of that. Right. If you're going to sell 100% of your business, that's typically what a broker's going to do.
Right.
Now, some of the brokers might work with some PEs or family offices. Most of the time, if they do, they don't really love to, because they'd rather just sell 100% of your business, be done with it. Because there's so much more negotiation that goes into minorities and majority ownerships and warrants and, what ifs of the future, whatever. So we live in this sort of between the broker and the big investment bank world on the M&A side, but we live across the spectrum of wherever the business owner is. And so our fourth bucket we call legacy. The legacy bucket is for the owners of the business that have been there and done that. And they have tons of assets that are entrepreneurial in nature that they've got to shepherd through the generational wealth, stratosphere. And now what's the new business? The new business is the family office that people don't realize they have.
Right.
That's a business in and of itself, because now you've got 50 family members that have to participate in this asset that's producing this significant wealth for the entire family.
Right.
Right. And now who's going to be my next entrepreneur in the family? Who's going to work in the business? Who's just going to be a dividend taker? And really, how do you eliminate nepotism from business to make business successful?
Yeah. That I've thought about that a bunch. Like I've thought about how difficult it must be to, transition generational wealth, if you will. Like whether it's best to just sell a business outright and kind of let somebody that's looking for the opportunity do it, or, have people step in the footsteps. And I guess there's no right answer, but it's probably different depending on, case by case and individual by individual.
I'm not going to say his name, but I have a buddy I'm close with in a mentor group, and I had just had coffee with him yesterday. And he has 3 kids. That's the reason I'm going to say his name, because I don't know if he's ever told his kids this. But one of his kids asked him, he's like, can I work as a very successful multiple business kind of guy. One of his kids was like, can I work for you? And he goes, you haven't developed a business value high enough to work inside my business yet. This is where I would go to learn and better yourself so that you can contribute to the family entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And I was like, what? you didn't just give it to him?
Yep.
Yep. I was like, that's impressive. Him and his wife did it for 20 years.
Wow.
For businesses across multiple generations, you still have to have leaders of the business, and those leaders may not be in the family.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I would say that, our legacy bucket is meant to provide, financial integration and support from the family and the trusts down to the holding companies, all the way down to the operating companies. And what happens with the serial entrepreneur that is successful, they may have some money in their 401k, or maybe have some money in, typical investments with their financial planners, but most of the time they believed in their entrepreneurial abilities, so they just keep doing it. And then at some point they've got 52 companies in 52 different lanes. And there are people in the world that have that, and that those are our legacy bucket clients. And our job there is to try to make sure we bring all of these concepts into whatever room we're in the moment, and then hopefully drive that through to the next generation for them.
Yeah. And have a clear plan.
And similar theories, right? Like, I believe in skin in the game, right? Flint Journal taught me I needed to have skin in the game by making me buy their papers, and I always had to give the business case of why they had to drop customers, like, right? So, what's the business case, and where are we going with this? We're just trying to have good humans in life by raising our children, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. Or, and is everybody meant to be an owner? Maybe not. Maybe they're not.
Yeah.
Could they perform a role in the company that serves the company well? Maybe. And should they be held to a different standard or the same as the values of the company and the employees?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's all the stuff that, is hard to figure out and weed through. And, sometimes you have your unintended consequences of things, and, there's no crystal ball, there's no magic answers, no silver bullet.
Yeah, I actually think over the last 5 years, I think I don't even know if it's economy or just current, business setting, has told so many people to go start a business. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that have their eyes opening because they're always, I feel like too many people are like, oh, I'm going to go run something that I don't have to work, 10 hours a week, and I can start a business. I never have to work
They'll have
after
a rude
5,
awakening.
no boss. I bet a third of those people actually have the entrepreneurial spirit to grind and grow.
Interestingly, I've been thinking about that a bit too, just given our current climate and our environment. But I think a lot about leadership, and in order to lead a company and have employees, you have to exemplify leadership. You just have to, you have to be able to care about people, direct people, help people. I mean, all at the same time of running a business. And so, I've met so many people that are great at being employees. They're great at getting jobs done. They're great at all these things. But, management and leadership are skills in and of themselves. And I think that to your point of generational wealth and legacy, if you're putting somebody in a position where they don't exemplify those life skills, those personality characteristics, I mean, you're kind of setting it up for failure in a way.
That's right.
That's a hard thing to see.
First question you should ask somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur is, are you willing to take a pay cut to scale?
Yeah. Are you willing to take a pay cut to scale?
And if they say no to that,
Yeah.
there you go. There's your checkout box.
Yeah,
You're
there's
done.
your thing. Well, we're actually out of time, Dale. And thank you so much. It's been a wonderful podcast. At the end of our shows, we like to ask, I call it a funny question, but I just have a fun one. I actually have one today, by the way. This is where I usually stall, and
He's currently stalling.
guilty. No, so I actually do have a fun question for you. So make an impact. Do you have a favorite project or a project that you're particularly proud of that you can share on air?
Gotcha. Wow, man.
Or
that's
several.
impactful.
Several's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
No, for this is sort of selfishly speaking as Dale. I'll speak as Dale, not make an impact.
Right.
For me, because we like to make an impact to anybody's spirit, and what that means for you. For me, selfishly, kids and sports is huge for me.
Yeah. You played sports growing up.
Played sports growing up. And I kind of go back and say, all right, well, why was it that I didn't just do the same things that other people that were around me did? And, certainly God was there, and I maybe didn't get as close to him as I needed to in parts of my life. I'm pretty close to him today. Doesn't mean that I'm doing everything right. I promise you that. But, sports, so kids sports is a big deal to me. Now I have some issues with how kids sports has become such a profit center to some of the parts of the world. But generally speaking, kids in sports and kids in experiences, because I feel like the social things that kids learn in sports will help them excel in life. And kids in sports is a big deal to me. But really getting into the neighborhoods that maybe I can't get into anymore. So I call them trust bridges. So finding people that are in the communities that we can trust, whether they're pastors or mentors or whatever. So any projects around that are serving kids, that may have sports involved, that can create lanes for kids to not get stuck in the environment of their neighborhood, and to give them more perspective on life so that they can be, whatever it is they want to be when they grow up, but more in a, productive way in whatever trials and tribulations that they've gone through or are going through. Can we create lanes to not be feeling sorry for them, but to make them sort of the victors versus the victims? And can we create those lanes? And to me, any projects around that, I get really excited about. Yeah. And any good humans, I will tell you there's beautiful people that are mentoring kids today in Charlotte or around the world that you don't even know they are, that are using their own money to do it. And so anytime I see somebody doing that, I'm like, all right, plug into our program. Here's a bank account. Continue doing what you're doing, but make a bigger deal out of it and create space for collaboration and other people to sponsor you to serve those kids. And there's a group in town called Mecklenburg Investment Company, and my great friend Sean Kennedy was the vision of that. Man, if you only knew the sacrifices Sean was making for kids that weren't his children, right, to try to help them in the world
and I'm
today.
saying I don't have time to do anything, and because I have one kid, he's taking care of hundreds.
Yeah, so I would just, to me, I really, religion and politics is in the way of significant progress for these kids. And I'm not Republican or Democrat when I say that. I may believe in my God, but I love your God too. So if your God's different than my God, we're good. I don't care. I'm not trying to, I'll disciple you to Christ if the best I can, but I'm not, if your God has still got good morals and good values, I'm good. Can we create lanes to open up the middle of the world and stop the divisiveness? Because the kids that are hurting the most are in both extremes.
Yeah.
Right? The poorest of the poor are getting crushed by that. I mean, COVID was I'm going to say this. So COVID, and this is why I'm a huge fan of Deborah for just digging in here. Our biggest issue with COVID was the older volunteers wasn't going to volunteer because they had COVID or were worried about COVID. The stay-at-home moms or dads, weren't going to volunteer because now they have their kids at the house. Who got hurt? Who got hurt in that? The kids that need it the most.
Yeah.
And so we had great organizations in the community open their doors and arms and saying, you know what, we'll let kids work from our space and use our technology so that they're not missing school. With fantastic people supporting us on that. What happened? We were able to use one church because we couldn't get enough volunteers in the community to pull that together.
Wow.
And I use that as an example to say, everybody that was worried about COVID, regardless where you live and stand on it, I mean, that the human sacrifice of our talents of our children that you actually accidentally are sacrificing. Yeah. We have to pay attention to that with the divisiveness in the politics and the divisiveness in the churches and the, humans, wherever you stand on nature versus nurture, but I say somewhere in there's both.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to kind of just not worry about that all as much to say there's potentially generations of kids that are perpetuating whatever was there before them and not making it out of that environment. And there's no freaking silver bullet. There just isn't. There just needs to be an understanding, a recommendation, an olive branch, a come together. And, there are really, really smart kids that will end up being so smart that they're going to be thinking about how they're going to steal your passwords to steal all your money.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's say if you're heartless and you don't like kids for some reason, very few people out there, they're going to be making a lot of decisions for you in 20 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So how do we get into the neighborhoods, build the trust bridges, make sure that, the intended consequences happen? You hear all the stories about, you hear about the Hope scholarships and all the scholarships that totally good things, right? People grow up poor. They already are then telling themselves, they start with no, this isn't for me. They're already starting, this isn't for me. Because the person, they set their goals too short. It's a goal setting issue. And the goals are set based upon the environment they're in. And so we have to create perspective, and we have to give perspective. We have to reach into those communities, give them the bridges to sort of see the world and see what's possible. And if we don't create that, there's a lot of positively started programs that don't work, and it's really because the human element of the good people in those communities that we just need to lift up and support and realize that, whether it's socioeconomical or whatever it is, I might not be the right person to go into that community and be the leader of that community. It might not be me.
Yeah.
Because of whatever it is, whether it's I'm a different stage of my life or maybe it is the color of my skin. I don't really know, but the reality is you have to create the lanes that will help those kids be lifted up, because that's important. And the past wrongs of society, we got to know them. We got to be aware of them, because that affects that trust bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to perpetuate them.
Right.
And we don't have to blame things on other things, because we are where we're at. And where we're at is the moment, and the moment is now. And, charity is patient, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Well, Dale, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait for lunch. I have a couple stories to share with you that I think you'll really enjoy. But until then, we'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.